100.3. Now is the time to buy a Triple J Motors sideman. The best deals of the year and a chance to get some extra cash in our Grab the Dough and Go promotion. Get 30 seconds in our money machine to grab all you can, take the cash, or apply it to the cost of any new or used vehicle purchase. Like our 2021 Hyundai Elantra SE at a low $21,995, or the 2021 Hyundai Palisade at only $211 per paycheck. Terms and conditions apply. See dealer for details. Triple J says yes. Just click, pick, drive, and purchase your next vehicle at triplejsaipan.com today. Triple J, customers first.
Good morning, good morning. Half a day buenas dan saludo para todo si maniku winigi programan Marianas Agupa. Ang sabalo talos dia fadilos gini ni oran alas 9 gigayan este oran alas 11. Undang kululu na kulo para todo sabzo na maniku winigi 100.3 FM. Rito tumbo estigi un senmit na kapasidad elektrisidad gairi. Zong madud gana, papa tinian zan luta, zan loki para aso siya na maniluta, manggayiwen o Island Guaham, espesyal na kulo para todo samzo, para aso siya manggayigid sa Honolulu, California, Oregon, Washington, Texas, Idaho, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, in Felicita todo samzo lokwi half a day. The tananay say na undang kululu na si Zeus Masi para ta celebra i mapanyagon ininyo Jesus iti utsagugo zan pago. Tapos may la zata pansige mo nagbinit sumukan i programata zata kalanghit i trongkon akangkang apanielos mga man malefan na i trongkon akangkang amot enaw. Asepya sigwelo tem langin humaulong pagos niya explica di dide no. Law antisa dita pansige mo na sumukan i programata ala tatanayam daw kulo na si Jesus Masi lokwi i sigenti siya na humuhugoy i programan Marianas Agupa pineni na i anonymous donor si Jesus Masi lokwi kung todo siya judo binigi programata inin i tutonya sti loki programata ha katsu i programata binigi 100.3 anonymous donor saludo para hogo i Diabetes Prevention Foundation lokwi si Jesus Masi po todos lokwi azulo. I Taber Foundation isinya man malefait na azulo gwini lokwi. Dan itiluta si dylantaber.com. Jesus Masi Dylan po todos lokwi i azulo gwini gi programata.
Dylan Tauber is an artist, musician, and author who has been based in New York City, Jerusalem, Miami, a remote island in the southwestern Pacific, and now in northern Israel.
Alright, thank you Dylan po now. I-soundbet, gininas dylantaber.com. Namala, natapansige mo na sumukan i-programata lokwe, tatanayon daw kulo na agradecimiento, i-sigenti siya lokwe na kumakatsu, i-Garapan Public Farmers Market, mga man malefa, para todos ato siya i-manhahanaw watu no? I-parking lot para i-customan i-Garapan Farmers Market, Public Market. Por favor, zangin para un saunaw bueno gi flea market isinyong parko gi Garapan Public Farmers Market para i-customan i-farmers market na parking. Okay, pues solo humalumo zan mamano di put para ta azuda imanggay gi siya gwin na lansiruta man mafata siya i benta niya man fresco siya na gulay petsay Biringenas, Feulis, Doni Pika, dan azu siya man mafatulokwi, ginin manilutag weno papa luta, mapostry ng pinamamis, kwaha lokwi siya ni man magulik, ready esta para anmazas atuli, bisitagwi si Paula o sino si Leroy, gwaha dogon tilacho, zan lokwi gwaha siya gwi kamuti, zan suni, piparaw para Christmas, okay? Pues bisita gwa to Igarpan Farmers Market. Lokwi Coral Garden Rota Hotel. Nanging bumiyahe papa luta mga malefa natin saga di Coral Garden Rota Hotel. Gaya di Kanton Pasig tsaka si Kindo sino si Rit. An puingi sa malinaw itasi zone ilaw watu Island Guaham unlilia Dongat with the Anderson Air Force Base. Lagi gua problema mo pud asuntun air conditioning ikarito mga malefa natin sexy Aimee gaya di Ace Air Conditioning itatin itaru su Garpan mga malefa nena. Pago zangin malago man oda ni siya kalang tafko siya na pinatinas Mike Naputi ni Guayzazon na sagwan ya. Umaygi Amerikas ta si Mike law gigwa no Hanoi zo na address niya man oda ho franela sino tafko siya ni di man prepara esta na no kalang no sinya un fahan ginin as Mike po sempi tanahuhuzong bini address ginin as Mike Naputi Resilient Roots, okay, waha loki bentanya bentan no lanyan nizuk mga malefa o sempi hana available si Mike giza Americana. Okay, pues ini za hululo ikulo para pawon na sabalo mala zata pansigi mo na gini no tanoy undong kululu na kulo pinili na para isigenti siya na isumililibra ihanin mafadagunia gini na si Mana pero si TJ si Aumadin dyan si TJ manglo niya giza Florida Tilacio or South Carolina special na kulo para hamzo na dos para si Lisa Binaventi ang mapatumagi si siya gini ni familia lokwi si nanania Evelyn Oka gi Islang Guham dan familia gini giza sa Ipan special na birthday kulo Lisa Binaventi ini na stone lokwi ng todo si familia para hogo para si Renessa Ataw special na birthday kulo para hogo Renessa ginin todo si familia lokwi para si Sina Ann Mesun special na birthday kulo Herman Palacios special na birthday kulo para lokwi si Alice Igito bueno with the Tanapak special na birthday kulo Ivy Hokuk bueno papa Luta special na kulo para si Zach manglo niya Tilacio gayigi militat si Zach nanginume kumukaw happy birthday kulo ginin todo si familia lokwi para si Rona Rachel bueno papa na wife na si Rona na sumasaga Mimi Camacho bueno giza Dandan special na birthday kulo Mimi para si Carrie Matagulay Texas si Carrie special na birthday kulo Janet King, bueno papa tinian special na birthday kulo para hogulo kwe. Para si Ruby Sablan, special na birthday kulo Merrily Sablan, dan si Evelyn Torres, special na birthday kulo para Mzo. Para si Ivan Igito Lokwe, special na birthday kulo Leo Pangilinan. Happy birthday kulo para Leo. Kabesan Humanities, special na kulo. Rodrigo Castro Digo, special na kulo para hogo. Para Lokwe si Jocelyn De Leon Guerrero, special na birthday kulo. Para si Paduna, special na birthday kulo Pedro De Leon Guerrero Lokwe para hogo. Alright, pues mala, natapan sige mo na sumukan iprogramata. Okay, gua siya asunto gini para talangnos no pinini na Tisinya man malefa anti sa di talang no sistisya manggaygi pisun inadingan pa na sablo no zaging wakulo ginin maniga gwini tunga si Ping ilaytay gwanaw gi Islang Guam talipang ko gaya. All right. Ping, good morning para hogo lokwe. Happy birthday. Kanan birthday mo loki pago. Diane Villagomez, good morning para hogo. Derek Tirregezo, dyan si brother Eugene Tenorio. Alright, special na kulo para hamzo lokwe. Alright, pues mala data pansigi mo nagbinig-wagwini antisa di talang no siya manggaygi na asunto ipiso ni natingan. Kanilus manadingan it gwini siya gihila na nota kosaki uwamas kinimprendi gi manautauta. Ta kumprendia na ginin estisia na inadingan sepita susuda siya muna ko na beniti man afaksa law ginin inatupin hinaso clashes of the mind, okay, na sepita suda ifuturo para todo dusit san para adyo siya man mamamayla siya na hinirasyon ifa magunta potante na ta praktika ihila na nota sa malilingo ilingwahe para adyo siya na pamagun di man mafa na agwi rumagtika ilingwahin sa muro. Param zulokwi na Carolinian mga man malefa na praktika lokwi ilingwahin minso. Okay, no, antisa di ta pansigi mo na zaw na belang no seste no guahal liblo ma esta si former Justice Jose de la Cruz sige liblo niya. Esta man ma-sign todo do available estigi Joten Kizo Library. No pati gini ifondo para fundraising Joten Kizo Library sa masililibra 30 anyos. This year matutun public library sa sumin mago si Justice de la Cruz para udunay loki 50% ginin este lagin mamano 20 pesos este na libro get $10 para guatugi public library. Okay, pues mga man malepas niya man udahan so lokwi siya man adinganit si Justice de la Cruz di oras na las 10:15 pa na Sabado para tayo panadingan dididi gwa siya gwini tinigay niya na siya ta diskuti pa go do kunaza na este siya na asunto no inigi apanilos asunto para pa na Sabado otro lokwi no zauna ta no lang no este potante este udita sasangan siya bandan kultura kat kulturan sa muro gwa tinigay niya este na paggon Palawan si Nancy Long na taydo loko este liling niya no how we got here no taymano na man mabtuit winin na tempo na iparatana lala traditional no culture pues what tinigay niya este na paggon si Nancy Long share experience niya itagwini siya na komplikado na ipangsa na man communicated telefona computer pud este siya bulan electronic bulan siya technology manggay gigit nota zan tinatize na este COVID-19 na sedlot iparapago na tempo ko na bay na makat ma praktika kulturan tauto masya mao na siya. Pues este que ginin as Nancy Long titled How We Got Here Journal, Personal History and way to keep culture and tradition alive, especially when technology is taking over our lives. It allows our youth to build relationship with the loved one and to build relationship with our culture or whatever culture you have, okay? Was available is taken as Nancy Long Amazon, $12.99, okay? Congratulations para si Nancy Long Lokwe. Alright, pues August iliblo na Justice de la Cruz, we just telling the fundamental issues affecting the Northern Mariana Islands. Sinya has the available loki Amazon.com. Loki presenti pago no available Joten Kizo Public Library. Alright? So nga sa hululo, lomela, data pansigi mo nagbini sa gwasi asunto loki na para ta no na bisbis pa na Sabalo no nigi lalikta ta na bisbis ako na benay bula siya finota winig radio sa bibisbis si tela uzong winig microphone. Alright, pues para ta na bisbis siya sulto pa na Sabalo pinina mala lang no seste na esta sige muna man na fanbesti kantunsalan mana fanbesti siya i opisinang publiko umanong esta na sige muna gwa Christmas sliding di opisinang eksekutibo yulo Capitol Hill zan lokwi i departamento siya mana fanbesti kantun opisina para gwa mas spiritu winigi tempon Christmas itagwini siya na karera mo na ibula siya at saki man makatumagi tsednut siya na mantinatan mi antilatio esta no haupus mid esta hasway no maski mid esta maninazi na COVID-19 pago na ugan ginin anay tutonya esti index case gi Oktubre 28 matufong para muna esti na isigat sa lapon gi halumisengso maski mid esta maninazi gwini gwaha esta tasangan na gi halatsa nagwa mamamayla no nezi nuevo na variant no timagiftungo trabia lo inanya no Omicron esta gwa siya mantinan ventilatio gwa size giza South Korea za tagage faday no sa inigi no i mababanya ipoito na sinya man matumogi siya bisita ginin South Korea desta man dinanazi no maninazi nesti nuevo na variant i Omicron kogwa ninazi gi Island Guam taza trabia taza humuhuzong logwahan ni nazi giza Honolulu za tatungwa ta comprende na United Airlines humahalong gini Honolulu watu Guam za pues Guam man hahano mogi no pusenigi loki tage faday no na no kinalamting movimentun tawtaw giasuntun hinalong bisita mogi gi islata lagwahay sa lokwe bueno papa ti Delta, ti Lazio, fananti Omicron, lagwazi regular na COVID-19, bueno papa tinian. Kwa 4 naman masoda za man ma 40 na. Kogwa haluta, ti tatungo. Kogwa haluta, taza trabia report humahalom. Sa taza loki bat kunairi, humahano papa luta, gwa didi no inatupin hinasu pud asuntun no kwenta gua cuenta tiha papasi i Star Marianas no inigi na palabra humuzong ginin i CPA za pudeno na rason na gua man gumimento gumayginaw na kausa gikote sa timang kontento lokwi i Star Marianas nenzo na kwenta i man ma plantazi huzong na madidibi maski 2.6 milyon pesos za anay magto enay nuevo siya na fee na para ma charge nezi i landing fee nuevo talo na fee eno na rason na hana suspend i kompanya lokwi sa timama sa lalapi taza ganansya zagin para waposi siya na kwenta pues ginenaw na tumaza flighting dan tumaza no flight para luta sino para tinian podeno igwa didi sinat akumprindi gi asuntun cuentas and quanto pa fan maposi landing fee gua patti bueno gumaiga trabia gi kotti trabia taza inakumprindi no dilatio ginigam na hani guma didi no palabra manhuzong siya no inofrecimiento gini ni opisina ni governor na para subsidize todos sa siya na kwenta i gua ma dispute i Star Marianas za para inapasiji na administrasyon titatungo mano na po fokseno ko azo na salapi iman manana i turis na 500 pesos para matug mawagi ginin Korea titatungo titageftungo mano no na para mafoksiji law para maajuda o sinubsidize i biyahin ibat kunay di papa luta o sinumpati niya law i alibes niya no kaud sinya loki una tunong i presyo pues sinya ha zangin ma-accepte na zinetti ginin i CPA gwa katta humuzong na inigi na palabra na zangin sinya man atulong i presyo po ma-subsidize za tafanaali o tusakan zangin guayno na no kwenta i trabia madisputa para muna. Pues pwede gumawa no fleti papa luta o sino batkunairi para sinegbi imanggay kiweno papa especialmente para do siya na tawtaw igwa necesidad hinimlo minalongo ne po kan muibi mogi sa ipan prespetat o sino para guaha biay niya pud asuntun familia o sino hap na klasin importante siya no na biyahe para mogi no pwede continua isipisyon pat kunairi. Kasi nige siya mapla na no problema o sino na singlong gi transportasyon pat kunairi. Alright po sa mala data fansigi mo nagwinig wahalokwi no siya manhujong za na talang no sa importante para ato siya naman tawta ti matungo waha si Zota Nuevo na Zota no representative si Corina Magofnia waha esta sige muna hadeka niya yun CUC sige hagwaduk ato siya iti na fanhuhujong na informasyon tad kumo zangin man applyaw no wa aplikasyon mo para apply CUC waha deposit un apapasi law iha dedika si congresswoman na ezo na deposit una pasig CUC para mababazi no account para elektrisidad o sino ezo mo water no debi it's a interest bearing account kumikiling na zangin maun para daw sigwa to deposit 200 pesos mama sa lalapi ganansya za debi un manana itati ang tilatsyo ti ganansya. Kung sinigi hadidika, za para ato siya na manaw-tauta, igwahay zun medyo account, di CUC, no expected tayo nagwahay na sa lapi, mamamayla, zangin, no dinansis mo na arakata, yat sutsubi si Representative Corina Magofnia, nuevo na tutunwi, no sumedbi precinct 3. La bonito especialmente para pago na hinalom no ekonomiya na bula siya man mabadedisi presente. Otro gini na daw na talangnos na umuzong lokwi si Governor Torres zagwa ofrecimiento halang nusuzong na para todos ato siya na litirao para ugwaha bonus para uhuzong sing 500 pesos sinya humuzong 500 pesos $500 di December 15 para ato siya na litiraw man ilihibli bonus otro na azudo na halangnos publika si Governor Torres na para unay lokwi todos ato siya imanggay zo account ni CUC 500 pesos. Merry Christmas para hamzo. Inigi siguro tsutsugi si Governor Torres o zangin waha kwenta mo gi CUC ma-minus sempre zo 500 pesos $500 na credit voucher o sinigi no para na Christmas siguro ay hana afaksa sa mamamayla na selebrasyon imapanyagon ninyo Jesus. Logwaha siya lokwi tawto man manzoti halom pude na bonito siya na regalo iparanoi ginin isalapi Amerikano Tadi klaro na ginin ato siya na taxpayers manggay gi Amerika. Zanging wafa magun mo man matsutsutso Amerika. Pus ginin tatalo niya siya na man mafufuksi tax umalum mo ginon sa lapi ginin gobernamento federal halum gining islata. Pus Jesus mo para todos American taxpayer congratulations lokwi zangin dinanses siya na dinay gininizot administration para Governor Torres bonito na gesture waha siya lokwi man concern iunay halum salapi para taw na sinya lokwi linya na quid quo pro you scratch my back and I scratch your back. Usgway na concern galumi publiko ato siya maatan na office din na gupya za kaudinanses ti paranoi litirao bonus. Zahafa di siya pumalo na manggaygi private. Na iti man litirao za ti ponoi. Hafa na litirawa ponoi. Maulik para litiraw sa manuli si 500 pesos. Después, manmanoi atalo 500 pesos para niya siusi. Pues, mid $1,000 sempre manmanoi ano siya. Local fair ano gipumalo na tauto na taulo guaha manggaygi private. Zati man litiraraw. Pustaza bonus para siya. No zanggin ti Taizu account gi CUC, pues taki tungkiko sa ni 8 na 500 pesos taza. Wa manzot ti halong gwini, naliling niya, na hafamon za todo dusa ufan manay $1,000. Todo do'y taxpayer gwini, na man ilihibli, tagwi tuton niya isti, na man manay no stimulus. Taza finasangi gweno za taza ufang umplem. Tutungo apa na ti matsugin tayo na weno na para isiusi. Zafa i-ITNE. Apa na ti noy voucher watu gi ITNE. Lo, all in all, no bonito na gesture. Congratulations pareno para aso siya man miresi. Palalang nos gwini siya yasunto na igualo kri na manotauta man inifefekta na esti siya na desisyon. Kaudinansi palatsi tutungo hamzoy no ni publiko. Ulalang nos gwini siya informasyon para imanotauta na imanhuzong na i-efekta gwini na simana. So okay, po sinige no gaygi gwini. I-otro gwini na izaw na talangnos. No wali didi gwini no siya manhuhuzong siya informasyon mababa no mamatina si Zota speaker komite para ato siya igwa siya kausan niya por este siya sexual abuse gwa siya no kinyatsi sa utunga na estige na managwa esti ethics committee para imbestiga ito ta Congressman Ed Probst. Ito na kausay hagagasa. Esteno pa nagmunatsan. Titugo na nuibo na kausa tali manaholom. O sino na complain ni manaholom na para attitude si Representative Probst po este. Hagagasa ito siya manmunatsan. Titugo tayo manueno law. Sininbad ko tari popota i-half man masusesidi. Nahababa no komite para inatan nino. Para maatan si kausa o sino i-complain nyo maulong para i-zotan no present no Representative Ed Probst. Izo na complain hindi na halom esti na palani ginin malogo ginin special elections at Patinas si Grace Vianage pananan niya esti na vizeno na muna tumutunis ti talo na kausa pumababa este pisong kongreso. Okay, gwini na si Mona Loki guachiluta si Fabian. Zao na belang no este hala hulso. Informasyon na guaha no matsutsuda no lilik huzong isur. Puro siya taki manhuhuzong watu gi kanton tasi gi fiyon pakpak beats PIC. Za ukumbida si manihanti ni CUC si Mr. Robert sino si Mr. Gary Camacho lo taza respond tutunga pa natin malago for respond esti na report umuzong gi social media ginesti tiluta si Fabian importante esti sa bulataw-taw sa talilya nan malofano San Antonio Pautakia San Antonio importante esti sa Hanoi fuitsa idota constitution loki para este clean and healthful environment. Importante no para ihinimlo imanawtaw especialmente solidano ni manggayig no Cobblerville San Antonio. Ti para kada dia umaninis ti pautaki no wato. Si Jus mo si Mr. Indalation nenyon lang no se no. Da pwede repair no zangin sumi i-pipe repair no zangin no enegi method para matsuda itaki uzum gitasi pos hamzo ne man pepis ka gweno gefaday sa sinya mantika gwian gweno law sinya ha lokwi no imbininaw gwian Ifanay na ifan guyan gweno ifan pesca gweno no atulay panhap gweno siya na reef fish. Sa hunggan mantikay guyan lo zanggin bumubukay guyan paki pus timangi siyempre. Alright, pus nigi na asunto. Thank you gano podya iotro semana tan akihalom si Mr. Gary. Natalifan magay ko hafa po mansogwi no zanggin siga no Matsuda i overflow i septic tank or i sewer. Okay, pues gua asunto gininis lang guhan talang no sestina unggan. Gua complain loki mafayo para si Senator Joanne Brown ginin i Port Authority of Guam pud gua siya hatsada na itindi po si po manoy. Sa mangumplain humalom esta no katta watu gi Office of the Attorney General gi sa guhan na paromata nino i kau para umakubla tati si former Senate o sino i President na Senator John Brown at sugwe na para hasadan may sagwi anagaygi zagwi sa mumaniniya i Port Authority of Guam. Alright, po sinige no za simple siya no si Peter halang no susung pagulo tali fan kumu manhanoy wato tatsuli loki hafman masusedi. Afanelos daw na tafansige mo nagbini sa ultimo bini na asunto pudi guaha loki gratis i kwet pun inegnon kulturan natibo harisibig inin i humanities sa na programa i para mapitsigi para muna zan i Marianas Agupa i para ta naapaha i asuntun Chamorro cultural heritage wini para ta kumbida siya magi siya man expert gi asuntun culture gini data para fan mamanagwi siya di gi reviewta para to siya gwa interest niya kasi stige sempre para tatsage sti bumaba i inaugural na programa talo gini ni kulturan gini inednon kulturan natibo Marianas core aramaso Marianas na isinipuputa gini ni fundon i National Endowment for the Humanities NEH kumupati stilo gini i American Rescue Plan ARP na tugi 2021 i NEH sempre lokwi sustainable na sti humanities gini the American Rescue Plan o sempre gwa tatutun man mangumbida magi expert sinyahat tatsage sti otro semana zangin manholom to di dokumento o sino otro nya semana na para tutun esti pud para mas finanagwi pud asuntun kultura cultural heritage esti sa i gumihilulu esti kumubiza i project director si Dr. Elizabeth Rehibe may parata lang nus gwini gi programata sinya como todos man halom talo informasyon tatutun gwini gi mamamayla na sabalo o sino i otro sabalo otro nya sabalo okay so sinige para pago na sabalo mala afanilo sa fansige mo na gwini sumukan i programan Marianas Agupa tuwa na bula siya lokwi no asunto para ta lang nos pago da pwede no pronto itsiluta si Peter Santos may panata na halom lokwe pago na sablo susteniam jo talogi 100.3 FM para todo santo de manggay gweno gi YouTube subscribe mga malefa da mga na paronis i program i manggay gi Facebook saludo para todo do santo buenas tige na may kumuka si Representative Corina Magofnia thank you neno na pinitsigi yung dedika CUC Jesus Mose za malak na tapansigi mo nagbinigi programan Marianas Agupa.
Half a day.
Day, talo pala si Peter Ganaw kay Gadbo na isla ng Guaham. Jesus mo si Peter, kung sige mo na.
Buenas, señor, dan para todo y todo siya ni Manikuno. No, half a day dan saluda para todo santo. Bonito na ani pa ako. Law, kuno kafe leleg mo pwede si Kwasumi kay Suwit, right? Kay
Canton Tosses Tino PIC, ni Pacific Islands Club.
Yeah, na sudro na undaya na monozo mamiskan ay. Glo gipupuengi este anay manuto na papa kita hagat no taza malika todo katna I tasi kasi manano papa lamay kaya kinene mami pada nay esa para taptian dahil inay flashlight papa ki Canton Tasi hindi burala na papilit ko pues seta kakat na pahit na anay magutos ko construction worker or asa no kalan magkwantog na da magutos marluk pipe malalag na like total plan ipapilit ko dan otro siya na ko you know law malika na tikinasan sa manatun natin kanino iguyan na
dati man
kita wana na anay umet panglaw so tayo panglaw na maapubit-bit sa panalis patkun
Jesus marose
yeah mababay panalis na sige mapubit sa taki sige na ligniyay pinumanam ko na angin mangunyaw gaga nisitang poksa nada
huzong siya no na bukan no nizok ko sino nga pa na
yeah no kalan di panglaw tayo kalan di circle of life di makadno taki tau-tau pues tau-tau makadno panglaw pues masini talo tau-tau pues kinano talo panglaw siya
circle of life no circle of life
ay de lo edi like mo pues si Senator Brown no kalan maiemok tau-tau edi uno necesita na claro sisinya subimay sa quick masa atin na direktor necesita ocupar o subi quick pues GST na causa board monai quick no hasap pues ang ginhazi para masok ni necesita board na masok ni guida sa receive na sila okay quick lo magay niya apodong papa ki pataluy board tigida
si board no
Oku ka nakun sita sina matobi di po matago daw pasitati yeah lo angin pero lihat pa or hadi lati bidanya pues tigida kilitano sa guida excepta lo tigida no pumaprepa subi
okay. Alright, pues está board pero sa siya umapreiba ihasada no. Alright.
Yeah. But anyways, ipunto malagopa be pago esta parapali tapuni esta matutado tempo ni eleksyon da kalan mata si Marcos Nicholas da sige mama gonggong sige na itilulat ko mong prendi plan ano atan na daw kampara delegado nizo si honorable Senyor Congresion kilili sa plan golf maulit na ihemplo ano na in English, open and transparent, megay titotsonya, megay titatanya, para itaw mito. Sa megay lokwi bintaha, megay lokwi un Mississippi. Lo dan ginun kumpara na dan idun mami gini magi, matut sinya tangi si Marcos Nicholas o kuka sinya bidanya no or sinya chogri si pero fanataki, you know? Edza bidatnya pada talili no umudongnya kini ofisinanya atna si kilili megay bidatnya man ali dan todo siya constituency stakeholders iman direktor iman markas iman matlo impi man regular na taw umiikmok mabababa yung pitinanya lo estimagi Okuka tahurumut kininas Marcos Nicholas hari pupur hafa muhutum kinin Congress da ombes anay matobis na press conference ki nikatnya anay mapaisin bula kwestiona tiap tungu tay manu po opi kwestiona apa kumikiliknya enal dan kinun kasula dan kita in kongreso da kaki Congress deputy tungu tot information Lo thoughts at Tinigonia. Okay, OP reporter siya. Let me get back to you. Let me research that. How fun na research? Dapat yung tungo is that. Piyot ang ginako no i-author ni amendment or i-bill. Taki has clearly. Kada ma-facing ko eh. How far po siya? Oh, SDK toko bill. SDK bidahu. SDK hukuntusi. SDK utotsunik. Tagena ulhuhumut kining kilili lo tata na ulhumut tagena gini na Marcos Nicholas. Da bula semasanya apa na sikiu kampare itu omri. Emanu betungo ko maulik bedatanya si Michael anjin tiu kampare dan ocho.
Yes, that's right.
Right? Anjin para tahongga apa ilileknya si Michael. Pues todo maulik. Todo maulik kita tunggu right. Jadi gua je sinanya nak if you know English, you cannot know light until you know dark.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Pues ingin pada tak kumpara si dia apa bidadanya actually malingnya masangan ingin pada tak kumpara apa itu bidadanya si Miguel. Pues kita tunggu dia tumakun sa tahunnya itakonnya. And now you know no Zabe langus sa jadi mas estas di bula tahu kini mau di semua puputai tahu lo di malili na kof dakun sa kof dikeru sa semuanya.
Okay.
Sa ne kampara apa bidatanya si kilili. Kalau na lipino English night and day idos.
Sogo na diferensya no?
Ya, kaya pa ito.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Pues Abiba si delegado niso agradece daun sangani you know na maulik pinatanya mumumuti ito na constituents.
Yeah. Visa Zota special guest last Saturday night.
Yeah, ulia tu. Yeah.
Okay.
Maulik nisita ma Abiba tu. Maulik na Somalia ganau sa etike maulik na sagane. Sa bula no actually para i tautosina mai sa bula no pintaha para amsa.
Okay. All right, si Zeus Mosi Peter Neno dan sipya manalit lalo to sa balo. Tunga na esta sige muna no mamatina sosya no para i-Christmas no siga muna un so with siya yung patitinas loki gigima no.
Yeah, siya sa kanyo si station na kalan kamtino tisinaw kumeto.
I don't know.
No, and it's around
okay.
You know, buwana ba na matuki na soko. Ang ginesta marmataw ki kasi la stress, la squatchu kita tamay. Ito pa natin todo ito para ito na okay sa ano pa ocho na todo man. Matuki na soko ko man. You know, buwana ba na mikanya pitataw ki undia kini estisya no ulan na tao ni tata tidak niya tata restriction niya.
Mm.
You know, ay kilala ko na maulit niya to na tao-tao ulit ko lahan na kung mo man kalampin ito malo sa, you know, sinat ba na medko di ekonomiya kini mo kilo migainal na tao-tao man malako parang pan, you know, longa aji jima.
Man nina panggago listi COVID-19 sta. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay. Then Stacy dan si
Okay.
Miss Gun. Para tudo samjag now si Juice Mosik. Stay safe, All right.
Alhamdulillah, dahil sa atin at i-report kalan naman man, no?
Naman man sa nama niya usta. Okay. Juice Mosik
Yeah,
si Luta, si Peter. Binigi gadbo na islan guaham. Tanoy man sa muro. Juice Mosik talo para hogo Peter. Wala ta panahon ng papatinian Senator Singh sa Stadium Zoo. All right, mala tanahan na halom si Senator Singh. Bueno, papatinian boy nasa rahog Senator Singh.
Buenas, Fred. Buenas, si Jimmy, no? Si
Si Peter pagumuna na dyan.
dan para todos tautor may stasyon. No, walay siya no lengking siya na si Manan no si Governor Torres ki dia hung falanda belum si Larissa Politi $500,000 na transaction na isaw niya hung nito isaw i-finance si Larissa
hanggang na manggi no sa no kalan mohon no i-finance pumatitina si decision kalan taginaw no ikata
ulay no magposisyon no na passing statement lain no magposisyon sangi na gobyerno para upiragi sa plan ito niya no cabinet anay pisa final at the end of the day bisa simple no mi film magel da mampuseno no sangi pes para gua ni kulan agor no lo wa sulay gitay ini na ilekuna sta il gobierno ga ikilok kiki na part ani statuma na si Larissa Bentista kumikwentos para federal. Then on the tiado.
Yeah.
Da izo na akit abiragi za abele pabu si Larissa ni no na nilat. No mampus lai tutu na pandangnya tu di era pandemi mulai di pakso persisти pandemik persisти siapa pun di klasin nilai siya ni no mampus mandangnya tutu di un lugar za ana falsus sistema mampus lai testimoni tempo pwede wow laksi ini istilo anu atan mo na mampus no very bleak isa na talo asti perititi na no afanelus fan manggoti monisinya fan manhadahi sa makat pramunas di hospital sta deklara na full emergency ganon na section no si pandemi.
Estamos upos e capacidade e eletricidade e spetatas e capacidade e hunnanerus ya ne man infirmeros and infirmeras ya kalan esta no man zazas esta ni paropan manatendi na no esta tilacio no imanggaigi spetan ni man manan safety esta manggaigi galo ni ICU lo bula man mapipega gaji alternate site na gua loki bi infirmera sempre na
Bukan, frontline na nung siya.
Gan na
Anak suju nu guam ni di manujung to di doktor niya ganing sekretar niya ni man uto sa mga akti. So, istat tawda kasi niya no para machugi ni. No, mampus lang, sangi lang, mampus na. Timpo.
Gua no formation no ginigap no ko afon no zokun no take mesti no ibu si talui Omicron na tenut za liliku lami tungu mga listino ko science esti ko waha laboratorio na siga malagno esti uzung na o manafan malongi tauto put para ekonomia na para afa tita giftu esti no lo walo ke linginya na esti na sogu no para soga esta za kada sakan sepestian matto esti timpun sogu no man sinagui tauto na za partesti gi debion mabakuna pos edigi siguro sigi mona ma pitsigi na mabakuna za zangin matto esti na tsednot pos kalan tagwia irregular no flu na apa mon na somo
Oh hiwa sigi usa sangang jalaksa na ina ako da kulang paropen na mentista sti bendas si pombe bendas no pasumo na sa mono
ya ada na sinya niki na tidak tensiwa sinya permanent steno
ini usa sangan kulang para kulang kumik magay distina para tafanok no saya no patafan mama sti i pamalawan muslim na ini
mabibindas siya magayon na pusadenas hindi para timutan
puslay sangi no pau siya
sangi na tempo no man masusisi
manggay kiti Disyembre na siya siya radio no dan gumataw po siya nistikantan no Christmas na ilo Rami, let's sangi na
Don kulusin na tunmento para manotota.
Ita gini no ita ni manaina na mangai ki sama gontalo kinu manilutaw kurugat siya. Ana ang chat sinasun na no afro ki manay mama no siya no. Gano yo kurugat sa lobus estili. No klase na ito na kamana ni bagi ni mahanaw no actually kago na para bunelo dito sa anin na data kanyotso no bunelo daw ko tap na sa itatungo no agupa na ko pa niya ko manggagay kita pwede lahat si turistika sa sangan na iglesia
Ulay sa nito sa akazuno
anak kita sa lami
na likino niya men sa sumogo gigima ne 4 ganon na case de man masuda no positive no gua information un tutsuli ko guahag menon no quarantine site is atinian represente Paulo pat trabiati mabababa
Tada no ungan ma Tungwa ano nagwahag din ilo siya ma-identify na yun.
Is quarantine site ko malo na pero kan mapega isi man masoda na positive na ko pero man mauday butin sin mo gina
Bahas tagini no designated.
Okay, pues esta Okay, Malik.
Masuk ay task force idan niya.
Okay.
Task force problema niya kay minakadong Kristiyano po makontrol na kay gibili sa katawag lang tasang ito. Irene kung kilulog kumakas.
Airborne, no? Sige ko apa gan mag-sa sinya airborne istan eh.
Oo. No, kinakadga ni Irene Iradanya ireplano maki kumupo.
Di patino na decision na mas suspend Star Marianas kala umafak sa time na mujung Omicron na variant zan ma-suspend flight. No, di patino gi decision niya Star Marianas?
Not necessarily. No, kuna waginin no between CPX dan airline na. No mention agni siya put fee para pagmahapsa or
okay, di siya ma-dispute siya na fees no.
Bagini siya lo fees Marianas siya no iha papasi siya no na fee na.
Hello, no senator nang waktu no na naging wasya no kwenta na tiya papasi Star Marianas za CPA no dimamanda no po apasi na tatunga esta nagwagaya no gilosod na o sino gigikuti na no debilo ko CPA no si Miss Kimberly Hines o trata pareo na todos associate mo apapasi CPA tanto siya lokui ofan makatozis ofan makuti na za uno tagi pa RTNT giza luta na agaga sa timana posi za ofan na tima na parereo za ni Star Marianas na ofan na maprotete RTNT giza luta za timana pa na papasi na agaga sa adibi na bula dibi niya bula kwentanya na Ligi liliko siguro na Rota Terminal and Transfer Company na sumutsubi si Stevie Doring na Pues liliko ko inigi loki pati Star Marianas na nangganon sa no ako na paragowa paron kubla na sa pumalo na ay tutungo ko pati no gi decision no making na
i-fair kung may kaling mo i-treatment.
Inigi lang iti-fair na treatment para vendors na sumisid bi pwede ni
tumupot o na ito sangin putipis tinay no putupan matao nga ito papa sa mafatinas no alternative plan B, plan C na process yan.
That's right.
No, apa para tafanay mano ni estilo ka ino na plan wahay doon niya limit ino na. No ni katalo na ta panggifta o ta na mau di corazon ta. Ta na no extendi mo na yung account na jangin istalo ke mapigano gitinya gitisinya sa tawag income po na possible ki process ya ni auto siya pues problema na itago no no istalay problema pa ini kulan anasu jo ni ji palabang ni ji entry pulaw ni ji masya malagi level problema mono pa right problema masya mono waktu no manunod ka problema ni I don't know how tayo manage no ikubit mo di kadiban kila ni tao to nang nagtimamay ko ang puingin na ni manasa manage siya ni pukunek siya otro legislatura no ako man ay mamanig yan so far kano ito legislature na
no Iguaso mga onyo na naman malili siya staff niya Treasury Department o mananangga check na papanmalang susung para siya na Paugo siya asuntun no Hapaman masusesidi siya no siga muna tilacio JJO committee siga man lang no supina man masupina Commissioner of Public Safety no tutungo ko fatto sa tilacio no gua information no mudzong na panan mang on sick leave na usinya masinyalan na haani ne pero gaygi gi hearing no sinya timotto otro semana por non rason off island.
That's one portion, one part di problema da sti best sunshine.
Best sunshine talo no makut mosu best sunshine sa bula siya dinagi dati apa si siya dibinya na sistema masinyalan talo na para umabindi todo makinirian casino za por mapansi siya iti man fayo lawsuit na za polisia sa tantuhita hadidibi casino sa Pago gobernamento ta hadidibi
no ay de niano board sinabi sunshine
tu get tungo like ko usuno man ma-hearing nga like commission casino commission no pudi crane para nga yan crane na po manatunog sa po mananalo na sa no gagya na lumalaylay sa nilo sa peligro para ato siya malulufan na tawtaw na kanton salan.
Pulay may pala bro ni kumikwentusan yan si Foman nung kaupan ng fityaw na gano'n ki century na fityaw no kan so fanunoy lang ako ni si crane na ki tuloy besang siya sa usang anina mungad no na unke ako kaupan na para itatatali gano'n no na mangulwa kumakway fistay na
ganda
i-crane na gano'n sa nilo sa sinemonada.
Okay. No senator, ta na shota izota da biano pampa luta sa guazota guest pago gi 10-15 da bena fonazan roda dan si Doro. No?
Okay, Glenn, si Zusma.
Na sifo bena pampa, na sifo bena na si Doria. Alright, si Zusma si mala zata pan ano pampa luta. So nakihalo medyo na report pinili na kasi na tatsagi si Lutano Isidoro Cabrera. Okay, mala data na olong si Guelotim na papaluta data suli loki report. Buenas, Guelotim.
Hello.
Buenas. Okay, consigue mo na?
Buenas lahi no Glenn.
Buenas para hogo. Consigue mo na no papa no.
Tunay no doctor dito smart para pagunogan talo na attention para Kalau hafal dan hafal na menekung na.
Aha.
Malit na kanang bonito na hani sa pagawin na natigyan no malagwa to para bay ko repeated talo no hafal na pina no amon de ko na stepi sa kalangwa tresa auto bumisitaw na.
Aha.
Sa papapaisin por este amot pas musinago sa por no Mr. Sigita mas muna kinagulo po este pandemic na. Gua manhungo ke review na no gua lope no ke video hospital lo mamalagwa na po pamanungo no apral este po este abo pas musinago na. Pues no dawa na bay ko sangan dinan na no hapa no este para no este ang sinagot na.
Os no bulan que mampareu no na ombud no na pansesir suruano dan hafana da step na os no ele o estado de dizer publicita na externalidades estige no usan dan sinado da tempo no mas que no tapete mais de 10 anos não é no apolo pode passar 15 anos para não visitar espetar sinado os no pode no continua estima casi conectado que lembro que no facto de sinagos da que e amo na curusure para sinagos não é o sesso usa para dangin sa caso portinagam os no antes de falar ilista talo no petondogo ados para todos que mamalamo da taxen de tenado para dia lo que respeto para gastar luta dan lo que especialmente para a comunidade luta de maneira com todos esperan por cada lugar pues que pago lá no e pues mencionando no específico aí que banana uso talo de do claro que lo punya fama politik lo que directamente que familia recipe para darle mencionar con lo guajo o mega que tempo na sempre no analiticado pues el estado no anai con el sector de sangue manipulado de visita son universidades dos partidos macho una se llama Pastana o si no más plan va a usar tender no en todo se llama plan de la máquina pues no cuando se dice no tres na hagon lockdown despegi o totally no cuando se dice no tres na August which is Scarlet Udama Kema dan no una hagon laguanan de Bagua Mosa una na hagon office de Bagua Mosa no dan dos na putan no pomegranate na tirahan na nada dos puntas estuve en este no y también y malai which is ludo wana paine con la set no nada no putra magusu na la pulsija ban palai na malai último de lo que na mauli para salto la hadisita y malai para wasa por otro lado y todo total o sea que usamos una set pequeña na ingredient dan loque no 1 inch na ginger which is aswad na ginger no dan loque no dan gemalan todo ele que isya mai no pegalo menos aqui pusuelo na tinha no berbeza e outro tinha by blend by smoothie night da sempre na ideia no might be os que ini da panas sih benige lo tang do pekat tu bemosia na ingredients night dan ada sini hano might be no tampin ngayo proses 5 minutos da enzumail después usa e kata o si no siya by blend da by gaming smoothie night no galo enige dan outro na ingredient no tanging buah no apple cider vinegar organic apple cider vinegar pues ese Genege no iparaguago no siya mausta 1 to 2 tablespoon maupun ipapasara ipagawao no usa 2 tablespoon. Pues genege no accesible di para y amot pas sinago da alwa di mampareo isuruana da hapa ko accessible. No yo line no after importante na basta buona más que digo también de la parte práctica which is una manera esta basis en la boca hasta para ese sentido porque como tiene na no esto no es pago más no more sa negativo más ya negativo no de identifica hapo más na more para tocar lo y tú na esta más implementar de manera nata eso son no manera de ser dan kuna si sus tomosi gilo estige no alivio di grupo. Os no esticia eu lista no efigi para sempre da Marianas Agupa no mato lau tangil mamalago efigi no lista para singa puentino manacam bezo matagi para dia. Udah soro na estiga lista cosa no estiga sempre da talua no toda la visita espectacular no galo de 15 years na tempo putang sinago.
Zangin timan malongwin, no? Zangin timan malongwin, eh?
Oh, zangin timan malongwin. Dan loki no wana meng kuna terapi masa sinago so no. Sa utungo na i-prevention mas maulik zangin gay istagi sa tao na. Pues no istigi na importante istigi. Wala formation po isti apa isti pandan sinago gini isis do flu dan isti po di pandemic na. Kisnya apa bangsangan dan no imagine apa bangsangan di medical loloke di semua pusmen agan i COVID task force kisnya pun timan sinan manian so pusmen di medical na na klasin question lau tai bini lope no comprendi na danggit beke kita masih na kono tori tempo no danggit tomas sti alternativo na eke sana rekomendasi promaculi no Tylenol o sino ibuprofen o sino supina lau gilo sti siya ban mo sti no na klasin temporary na amur lau mega lo pesia po per na tekta danggit na papisyo no tapi no half tekta go teste o liver dan lo pe especialmente da kidney pues esti na no usasan na sti lau para ma Economia to qualify sti ya pasasangan lagi dan ina di amur no conventional kisahnya mas uma pemamaisin waktu di medical na environment passion no kamu pues no pausa lain mas no gilo energi eno para pak ngana dia para medeko ngai no talwa semua ni setiap pas musinago sa pudiwa publicito dan importante para comprender sti Zahir di istia, Rusia otro na pamon di nota no Marianas para dan loke menurutnya di form Rusia pembatik tika puti tita batisyo lau bagi kita manilang juga anda malau kulit ini di amut natino posno eno alai para no
Jesus masih sa wala
online no plan di posistia mo pas mesinago na
Alright.
Loki di masa estina na listener like talk show lalu no extending dengan itu na o pamam subscribe di Marianas Agupa talk show di YouTube dan di kasus buat punya siya mabiasa tapi dalam kung na di programa kosa kisnya bantiman juga osino mahal match gane po pangtinamol.
Alright, si Jesus masih talo benutim. Bueno, papa,
Ulay,
dat po na
no walay otro no talo didi timegay na. No este último todo online eso y por como guay no baseta no musum no información na para guay no practice que ni gobierno na no Iglesia que no una manera no sus mosilan y governor na di tagini na tasin no do siya gi palo na tempo kung wala siya bantik pero do mabandiresi global like no like English like no we give credit what credit is due like so we give locate this credit where this credit is due so ipago like no una na i-cover ang institutos kumasi sa utuwa ma tapi Dios berhenti melakukan produk para extend ajuda na la berhenti po di buat decision ibanan tanasya sa berhenti no hatungo na adman retirees di pan mamananaya na law siya kumahulog siya efektos dan no aadwa no sa ekonomiya na leko berhenti matilatsi na ajuda pero ajuda i retirees dan loko edi sangat erdo ne talagu na propana juga putih CUC no monitaro ini kena ajuda sa no kaya kita dalam makhluk na tempo wane tadi na mege malum di cekta dengan parliament na o sino retirees lalu sangin ta dalwa pa na tempo no mege na obligasyon ta no papana mo dan begesian no kata apa sih wane ano mege lau dan ngin tala pansuat to dia pa pata posing penting lang wagi pantun no 5 pesos na pero aktif pa lau no te commitly na todo se no takkan sabihin niya para huzo
Esta.
Pusta lo no estudos mos na lai no galugan dan lo que i manek mo para paro na hami no tafan mago todos esta mamela e tempo para el fenómeno de Christmas no dan ginawa siya pinantinimento mala tafan no mala pandani hakana problema tafan ago tibona tafan manggo mas azulo gini na China poti hapa talsa sige pa na tempo dan floki imamla na tempo musim mat lai no talo no Jesus mat tawa mas dapat extended lau put mahal mo para visitor dapat untuk kita ini talo no Jesus masih pada Marianas Agupa pagkul dan tulis si Maria itu
Esta, para hongulo ko igwalutin, gwanaw papagi, gadbo na Islan Luta. Zeus Masi talo po din ako, zamala, zatafan, sige mo na. Okay, maladat noy dong kululu na saludo para isigenti siya ni Manggay Gilokwi gi Marianas Agupa YouTube zani Facebook para si talo si Corina, Representative Corina Magoff niya. Buenas para hogo. Para si Roxanne de la Cruz para hogo Lokwi, saludo para hogo. Para si Becca, special na birthday kulo para hogo. Para si Vincent Ataon Tilacio Gagi Gilanso si Vince. Buenas para hogo. Tabala natanan no halom espesyal na bisita ta. Former Justice Jose de la Cruz, si Zeus Masi talo sa para ta diskuti di esti tinigay niya. Bonito esti na liblo a panelos the fundamental issues affecting the Northern Mariana Islands istigi isiko isigente na liblo na iha tugi papa put parao kanadzuda loki ito ta former Justice Munoy didi no storyan i gobernamento ta ginin itutuhon niya este sa nanay ta loki no adzudo is masya retirao lo bonito este na libro patis ti available este talo gi Joten Kidzo Library no 50% tilacio para uy na juda i public library mas libra i nina 30 na anyos na matutuhon o sino i mababaw niya i public library na nina fundo inay no ihagas o sino i difunto si Joten Jose Tenorio dan difunto Maneo Kidzo Villa Gomez dan lamigay siya na toto man manajuda. Lauzaw na binahalom si former Justice Jose de la Cruz. Bonito to istorya niya anay anagwahay sti launching of his book gimapos na sabalo o mapos niya na sabalo tilacio. Zagwa istorya niya tinituhon niya ni magtugi mga sa tutun no umatan isti. Wala panelos na benakihalom isti Luta. Paza mas dyan si former Justice Jose de la Cruz. Titungo ko hahuhungo ka so gipresente pa ako estilo sa molom.
Gan.
Okay, ulinis ko hungo ka so nang gazatan na at nga Okay, buenas para hogo no Justice mamalika to do.
Malika todo no ben sus masi sang kumbidado ta pa be. Sauna paggi damo no talk show i Marianas Agupa i program Marianas Agupa tomorrow na Marianas estilo magagit pa ako. I really appreciate your invitation para be sauno dumiskuti mas po dito nota dan i pudilibro. Antes de be continua dan pa be nagkasi question mo no malago pa be na yun sundangklo na si Dos Masi staff dan board Joten Kidzo Public Library for hosting the book launching about 2 Saturdays ago I really appreciate that they were very helpful gimagay para buodan ni pamilya ko. And I really appreciate that para si junior director Loki si Linda Naputi. She was very helpful than his staff. I'm not really sure, Glenn, how you want to proceed nesti discussion Blue, I guess we have to look at it from the standpoint of the entire Marianas na Tanota. A lot of times is the events in history take place that affect the Linalay Tautaw na. And going back, briefly over the last couple of 100 years, umano si Ferdinand Magellan ginin no Spain na para voyage around the world. That's when he found the Northern Marianas on this side of the Pacific. Haswa na ginin Atlantic Ocean, umano na papa gigi mafanan Tierra del Fuego the South America, punta South America, di talo matu Antarctica si Magellan lo biragiulo sa Guacampas ni finanon ni maniga si North and maniga West. Pues basically at tidi ay daman asoday Guam na. Fanan gida umatag ni umalam gi bain umatag gida Guam ta asoday. It's a Morusias naman yung sagay for a couple of 100 years, 1,000 years. Yeah. About 3,000 before he discovered, 3,000 years. There's a theory na in Malaysia or somewhere in the Far East. It's another so. And then subsequent to that, Spanish, colonized the islands, the Micronesia. And I guess after that, again, America then Spain resulted in the transfer of ownership of the island of Guam. Tintirisao no America na potuli to the Northern Marianas and the Micronesia. So I guess they were sold to Germany. Isn't a bulagito totaloki was German ancestry, no? Inaan siya ni talili na mismo totota siya through intermarriage. Si Hausneiders, for example, I think is a German name. Then after that, as a result of the First World War, Japan took over in Marianas. Mapedi Germany, the First World War, the colonized Japan, the Micronesia. And all of these are events in history and we islanders basically are just, we don't have the power, we don't have the might. They have the warships and they have the guns, so they colonize us. And for a long time, Taja is no political power and economic power as well. Taja, we have no say. Unggan the Tempun Japanese for 30 years during the time that they colonized the Micronesia, including the Northern Marianas. Other than Guam, Sagagayga, Mikano the Guam all the way until 1941. 41 I invade Hawaii, Japanese. So it wasn't until that, the Japanese then took over again and we were colonized and they had the lucrative sugar cane industry in Northern Marianas. So almost the way our elders talk about it, kind of every square inch of land in the in the Marianas mausa para cultivation of sugarcane, and these were being exported to Japan, and the economy back then was quite active in terms of production of from our own resources. And the funny thing about it is Northern Marianas really is not a big piece of property. The Saipan mismo is only about 45 square miles. In New York, the city of New York, there are 5 boroughs, no? One of them is Manhattan. And Manhattan is the main New York that we know of, no? That is about 20 some square miles. Kana lamitagi island of Saipan, island of Manhattan. So, but our biggest island is 44 some square miles. I think Tinian is 39, Rhoda is 35. I'm not really sure. Something along those lines. So the rest of the other islands here in Micronesia, this the Duli, the Mauk, and things like that, no, are very very small islands, but still they were cultivated for other purposes. You know, the tapio, I mean the copra, coconuts, and things like that. And in my book, I'm going through this thing because even after the war, World War II, no, we became a war in the United Nations because, and in my United Nations, they weren't sure what to do with all these colonies around the world. And they decided to put us under trusteeship. And the United States, which fought and lost a lot of lives here in Micronesia and the Pacific, requested that they, and they gave it to the United States. The United Nations gave as a trustee for develop us into, so that later on we could decide of the political future. And so we went through about 30 years of that. Pues ni matutunay political status talks in the early 70s. Before then, Congress of Micronesia established the Micronesian Political Status Commission. And the Political Status Commission started this discussion with the U.S. side. And then at some point in time, there seemed to be a divergence in terms of interest and what the people of the different island groups want to do. Initially, the thought was for the entire Micronesia to not be fragmented. And as a group, when it appeared that most of Micronesia, I think, were opting for either independence or freely associated state status, but independent countries as well. The leaders back then in the 60s and early 70s decided that they don't want to do that. They want to be a part of the United States. And in my book, the first one and the second one, I mentioned, in the 50s and 60s, we had 2 political parties. And the 2 political parties are really not much different in terms of ideology, other than the fact that, one of them wanted to directly join the United States without joining with Guam, and that's the territorial party, the forerunner of the Republican Party. The Popular Party back then wanted to join with Guam, and they started along that line. And then in 1968, of course, Guam had some kind of referendum just to get a feel for the people of Guam, what they feel about the idea of joining up with the rest of the Marianas, and they were not too keen on the idea, and they voted down the idea of joining with the rest of the Marianas. I don't know whether the same sentiments is the same today, but history has moved forward, and we decided that we still want to be part of the United States, and that's why we formed our own Marianas Political Status Commission. And the Political Status Commission was headed by 2 of our leaders. One of them is Ed Pangilinan, the attorney, and was a member of the Congress of Micronesia, also said. Then we also had back then what is referred to as the Mariana Islands District Legislature, no? And the president of the legislature at the time of the political status talk was si Ben Santos, Mr. Santos, Vicente, and Naputi Santos.
Right.
The 2 of them were, he was the co-chair for the thing. He's also president of the district legislature. And so they started talking about the idea of joining with the United States. And they wanted the president's representative to the status talks to, if they could listen to the Mariana. Initially, they were reluctant to do that because they don't want to be seen as trying to fragment or divide up Micronesia. And then when they found out that Palau also wanted to be different from, they want to be on their own, Naglasi. The Marshalls also wanted to be on their own. And then the Federation of Micronesia, Caroline Islands, no, Chuuk, Pohnpei, Yap, and the state of Coast Rai, no, wanted also to do. So they ended up with 3 different compacts of free association. And in our case, what we negotiated was a covenant. And it was the first time in history that we negotiated a covenant, an agreement to join the United States. Never in the history of the United States has there ever been like a formal covenant, political status agreement entered into by the United States. They usually acquire things on their own, either by conquest, through war, by purchase, through Virgin Islands, as I understand it, was purchased by the United States. American Samoa also agreed to join the United States, but they had some of their own ideas as to how they joined her into the American political family. They didn't want to become U.S. citizens because of their culture and all that. And all of these things are really critical points to understand in where we are today as a Commonwealth of the United States. And we're also affected by decisions of the United States Supreme Court previously that were issued by the United States Supreme Court back in 1901. Insular cases. And the insular cases that were decided, there were several cases, and it has to do with the territories, Philippines, then Puerto Rico. Well, the first was the Downs versus Bitwell in a case that had to do with the importation of products from Puerto Rico to the States, in this case, New York. And they didn't know what to do with it. And they said, well, are you subject to paying tariff upon entry into the port of New York? And that case went out to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court decided, looked at the question. It was a difficult question because in the United States Constitution, there's only one provision in the entire United States Constitution that dealt with the territories, and there is a territorial clause. And in this case, because Puerto Rico was acquired by the United States as a territory of the United States, but it was in the Philippines and Guam in 1898, then the question then becomes, are they really a part of the United States? So that the Constitution, the United States Constitution applies. And the court had to grapple with that question. And in order to answer the question whether tariff or tax should be paid upon entry of the goods from Puerto Rico into New York, they had to answer the question first of whether it's a part of the United States. If it's a part of the United States, then there should be no tariff, no duty imposed on imports into New York, because they're not really considered import if you're a part of the United States. What are you importing? You're already inside the United States, no? Prewa na ang ganun no effectos in California, guato gid Florida, no. Should there be a tax? They're all part of the United States, no? You're part. Usually you impose taxes and duties from foreign countries. And in this case, the Supreme Court said, well, they're not really a part of the United States. And a lot of these issues have other ramifications because some of the justices, like I said, on one or two occasions, I think in your show and other places, they have never been to Puerto Rico. They've never been to the Philippines. They've never been to Guam. Here they are in Washington, D.C., deciding a case. And they say, maybe these guys have strange languages, strange custom, and so in the territorial clause, they look upon territories as a property of the United States, piece of property that could be disposed of by the United States Congress. As you know, the plenary powers of Congress.
But we are not, right? Because we are Commonwealth, correct?
Yeah, well, no, not yet. We entered into this and we are not subject to the territorial clause, the plenary powers of Congress.
All right.
Okay? But the funny thing is this, they are still treating us as one of the territories for
Right.
purposes of imports into the United States. It's gina na kada malag post office o the utility box ni flat rate box or whatever box no pag na ano pa America no para o din na familia na. They begin to fill in na form ni di mafanan customs declaration form.
That's right.
And I always do that. And kaya kita may CP pa mag-isaipan pa fan meal para pag you know, I have to fill up that form. The tigo easy to the form I fill up because they ask you what is inside that box, that quanto balinya and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? And then you have to fill up that form. But if you were sending that from Mississippi to Hawaii, you don't have to fill up any form or declare anything. Office and alumni zuko no papaza pa tomatis pa no, you know what I mean? Nahanawa watu kay si Roxanne si Ricanagog is Hawaii karona ano watu no cosas na taza ti usago na along yung box daw umel taza pa bitog pa be pasya lo hangi pa na bena ano magi pa si Roxanne Agog is I have to fill out those forms. Guarda bene, tagi to pagguato si tawag mo na no makita lang lahat to man sinatuto. Television si pa siya man fill up form no. Bini na pa be falaki post office lo. That is the reason why. No, because of those cases. So even though we are, again, no, the former colleague Justice Borja has always tried to make it a very strong point. You know, no, we're not a territory. And I mentioned this last time, I think, on your show, Matusi judge, a federal judge, U.S. District Court judge for Puerto Rico, no, si Judge KLP 3 years ago came. He apparently also has this idea, well, you know, you guys call yourself a commonwealth. We are also called a commonwealth, but everybody's a territory. No, we're not a territory. We're not subject. And one of the things that I wanted to mention in my book, in this second book, is the U.S. Constitution. And the oath of office under the covenant, not all of the provisions of the United States Constitution apply to Northern Marianas. Okay? Those applicable provisions. So for this book, I decided to look at those applicable provisions. The guy gives the applicable provisions, ginikileblo. Office na provisions, guy gives the uno ni taigwi territorial clause. We're not subject to the territorial clause, I guess. And that's the reason why we're saying we're subject to the covenant. We're subject to the terms of the covenant. It's the covenant agreement that makes us a member of the American political family. Other than a post office, it really is a distinction without a difference in terms of how they treat us. We still have to file. I mean, submit it in Asidan Panalma. Why? No? Tori tempo fill in a customs declaration form, no? Right? Is it blue na card? Glenn? Nasa di blue card ni antes di Polani United gi the Honolulu no Malayon ni custom the pon fill in.
Yes, right.
The kada pon checka di domo lages naigwato ni blue forms and domo passport and no Lenya, what do you have in your box and your luggage? My clothes. No, it's getting again. It's getting customs talo na we're considered customs are usually for foreign countries, and so they for customs purposes we're treated as if we are a foreign country, and the reason why they treat us as a foreign country because we're not part of the United States. One of the other things that I mentioned, Gile, is that United States. Kontuba komento si po in the United States. Offer inani country. It's the United States of America. It's not the United Territories. No? Timan mambobotay presidente. In my book, I'm suggesting, I don't know, it probably would fall on deaf ear in the States, in the United States Congress. in Puerto Rico, there are over 3 million people, 3 million U.S. citizens. That sino man mambota pa United States president to this day. Ito we have, so many thousands of U.S. citizens, and we became United States citizens in 1986. And then terminated trusteeship agreement by President Reagan. Law no 3 million plus another maybe 500,000 from the other territories like Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, then Virgin Islands, Northern Marianas, and all that. No, so we're roughly about 3.5 million U.S. citizens in the territories that do not vote for the United States president. And technically, well, we have a delegate, but they're not really, Congress, full-fledged members of Congress. They're considered members of Congress. That's how they relate to each other in the United States Congress. Delegate Sablon, delegate Ginning Guam, San Nicolas, Tutungo Ginin Puerto Rico Pagulo. Even the Washington D.C., the capital of the United States of America. It wasn't until 1961, I think, an amendment to the United States Constitution, amenda to allow to Washington D.C. Pofan mambota pa U.S. president sa timan mambobota for the president before that. Can you imagine that? So my thinking is, if they had amended that for D.C., why didn't they amend that, for the territories? The na klaro todo district territories and what have you na klase. The na para basta U.S. Congress has plenary powers ni sinya ananyayo ni other territories. Sina matogen na Northern Marianas we're not under the territorial clause, but under the territorial clause for the other territories, Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico even, well, the U.S. Congress could dispose of them. Ultimately, power territories and the Commonwealth to have their own government. It was the United States Congress. Ultimately, power to set up our own government. Ita than the United States man agree na we can set up our own government. They cannot come in and intrude on our government. We have the right to independent self-government. And we started self-government in 1978. We didn't become United States citizens, and the islands did not become a full-fledged, quote-unquote, Commonwealth until 1986. So, and these are really important points that sometimes we gloss over and think we know. But until we really look at it and all that, then we don't really know it.
Okay.
That's the.
Okay, for the benefit of the viewing public, just a quick reminder. The book is Fundamental Issues Affecting the Northern Mariana Islands. Available for Prestigi Amazon, right? Explain that.
No, okay. If I say Roxanne Nagasa, we just set up the Amazon no connection, then how to do it. She's waiting now for word from Amazon in terms of how to set up how the payment thing and all that. And we've set up an account and all that. So it should be coming out hopefully within the next week or so. I understand also a public library has arranged to sell books, but also we have taken out an ad, and there'll be flyers, I guess, that we probably would circulate. Contact si Roxana sa guida I could rely on. I mean, it didn't I
think Roxanne.
Yeah. What on the number, si Roxanne? 288-195. I mean, not 288, 788-1957.
Okay, can you put it up on the live chat so we can put it on the screen, Roxanne, if you're listening? Si Roxanne is number. No, justice available estino is a road Antinian, the public library.
Yeah, we
arrangement.
we if it's not available, it should be made available by the public library, because there are many books over the public. We after that after the book launching, we just left the rest of the books with Linda. Then she could be selling it also, and what they sell there, we like you said, we'll give to the public library loan. No, we've already donated some money from that book launching last Saturday para library, and hopefully they could use it for whatever they think is appropriate
So
by
that's good.
library.
Continue on with your discussion.
Okay, the first I wanted to mention that's the political and legal aspect of Lebrusia that I do. In reading this book, you may have to go back to the first book also, because to understand this, you have to understand what happened and what I describe in the political status negotiations and the issues before we became a Commonwealth. Then for the first 30 years of Commonwealth government, that kind of forerunner is the late Bill Stewart, the economist for the Trust Territory that was here in the Northern Marianas for a long time. It opens up things that he has never was aware of before he read the book. But the second na libro na Glenn, I mentioned already the political, legal, and constitutional nature of the issues that the Northern Marianas has. The economic issues is also one of the key things that I wanted to point out in the second book. Glenn, if we're going to have self-government, if we're going to govern ourselves, I mean, that means that we have a degree of independence and responsibility, no? Glenn?
Yes. That's right.
In order to have a successful self-government, we have to be producing things. And at the moment, our economy is really at a standstill. And it's out of our control, I guess, it's the COVID-19. Even without the COVID-19 issue, pandemic, that has paralyzed the visitor industry, which is our most favorable industry that we could continue after this whole thing is over again. Every now and then, the economy and the industries we introduce into the Northern Marianas is calamity. We're shooting from the hips. It's in a closet. Whatever somebody thinks of pops up that we don't have time to think about it. It happens, and they started setting themselves up. Garment industry is one of them. We knew that, and we know that from the beginning that, or we should have known from the beginning, that the only reason why they were setting up shop here is because of the fact that it is the Northern Marianas not subject to the quota, textile quota, garment textile quota restriction on foreign countries. Import to the United States. When they use up their quota, they cannot ship any more garment. They found in the Northern Marianas a place where they could do that. That is not subject to the quota. And they literally transplanted some of their garment production to the islands. At one point in time, they had 16 garment companies here in the Northern Marianas, this San Antonio, all the way kaptan hasta Tanapang, no?
That's right.
Maninigo na wato San Antonio, mangagi na ni Pacific Islands Club, no, todo the continent, Chinese, no, na garment workers. And they came here because that's their job. And they know how to do it, so they had to be brought over. It brought us some problems too, because the Chinese company. Then there were Chinese companies, and some of them were from Korea. They were strict with their employees, and they were locking them up. Chain link fence around the compound. it brought us some really bad publicity. And that was the start of the United States Congress saying, Northern Marianas, you guys gotta shape up. Karan no loophole in terms of people coming in. When people come in, it's like, they could stay forever. And that's an area that I also felt the United States has an obligation to assist the Northern Marianas. No, we're new to this thing, but nobody did. I don't know why. After the Taja, no, 902 discussion about this issue. They should have, but nobody wanted to do anything because, we had the freedom. But with freedom comes responsibility. Otherwise, then and pero tautan siga kanno ning kanno the tauta no sin parat no thinking at some point no mumalongo anti momo do kumoli high blood diabetes and what have you. So there should be some responsibility, and we didn't do that. Takiman maamuda it. Ada man maamudin na sa man lalolus the United States Congress man mamut playing hit for Madrafi. Let me mention this. Madrafi proposed legislation to take over immigration the Northern Marianas. The friend ni Taja man magastaman man naikop and it's not draft. Ni patali the patafan man comment. It's going to affect us. And nobody showed us that draft. At least that's my thinking. If I'm wrong on that, I stand correct. I want to know Adimana is in a draft. Because it was until Taki Estama introduced to the United States House Committee ni man maktumagi di delegates in territories, no? Man maktumagi si Adiji in Virgin Islands na palan ni Fernand Doctor dun Huh?
Is there no committee, no?
Yeah, subcommittee on insular affairs. Siya man manain ni power to do a public hearing in Northern Mariana. One probably that was the only one the U.S. Congress subcommittee ever came out to the Marianas to conduct. And in the process, they man magtumagi tutungay ko mati delegate in Guam, and I forgot how to because Madeline was a delegate from Guam. That one, American Samoa, the other delegates from Puerto Rico, okay for that. They had a hearing, and they had that hearing in the new courthouse. Taigyo gini sa umano pa San Lago para bitek si tao and we submitted a comments on that, and one of our comments basically don't the way that draft legislation was drafted by Interior of all people. They were not too happy with us. It was during the time of one of those Assistant Secretary of Interior for Territorial Affairs. They were given that task to draft that. Which basically said, we're going to take away immigration, but we're not going to hurt the economy. Well, if you take immigration and you stop, Commonwealth worker, non-resident workers, foreign workers, non-resident workers under our law, under the new law, is the Commonwealth worker, CW. Madrafi's legislation, you got to remember all these delegates that were here for that hearing, they don't control their own immigration. So, why should we have our control over our own immigration? It's one of the, I guess, benefits or privileges or exemptions that were given us under the covenant agreement. Local language na covenant agreement at some point the United States Congress may make the immigration and minimum wage laws applicable. So immigration, minimum wage, and U.S. coastwise laws at the book signing President Agnes, the former president of the North Marianas College, Agnes McPheeters, raised at that here two Saturdays ago. What about the Jones Act? Jones Act has to do with shipping from U.S. coast to U.S. coast. Foreign carrier cannot pick up one thing from one U.S. coast port and drop it off at another U.S. port. They have it from one country to one port and then go back. The loital man na exemption. Gagagay is an exemption. Gagagay is an exemption, Lombi. Our economy doesn't have anything to produce, so why would they stop by? So that is one of the things that no has hurt, I think. So the idea is to phase out Commonwealth workers to zero. That's why I do, Glenn, no? That's why the idea was, pagod 18,000 plus next time, 14,000 plus next time, 10,000 plus next time, 8,000 plus papag, 4,000 plus zero.
By 2009, August.
Can you imagine a visitor industry here without additional workers? The kind of workers we need are hardly, it's not because we need skilled workers here. Wani man muto nga pago ginida no manaliligaw plumber pon matsugidi ni simi gipipe mo pa no pon mareglajin no pon bandang plumbing. Kuf makan man yun da. I hope na STE trades industry that's doing that would start, doing things so that we can have no other skilled workers that we can rely on. Fan mambaba business niya, they acquire the skill. Mechanic, electrician, plumbing. Hey, kan brother man ligo to plumber gini tisinya soda. You know what I mean? We have a lot. Man studio looking for culinary.
Momentarily, Justice, by bring up is the contact para si Roxanne Yagamo.
Yeah.
Para siya man malago man order contact si Roxanne de la Cruz. They get on screen Northern NMI fundamental issues at gmail.com. Okay, and malago liblo pagwa contact si Roxanne. NMI fundamental issues at gmail.com or 788-1957. Okay. So contact para si Roxanne. Go ahead, continue on, Justice.
Okay, so as I was saying, whenever the United States Congress drafts legislation affecting e-Commonwealth and e-territories, okay, because Guam is not really that big in comparison to other places. Ungan dang kolonya di Northern Marianas has about maybe 200 square miles of land and Gagimilitan and all that. For all practical purpose, we're really out here in the Pacific. And estina leblo na yung polugin ni i-arrow no manihon niya hin man manihon niya hin bato Japan and South Korea and no Philippines and China no ki pagbato no actually pagbato Hawaii.
Not even I'm na dos. So talo para magpo ito the program lo. Anyway, kuha na paron off island, right? Off
Island next week, no Glenn Law. I mean, if you want to, you could bring the program over there, and I often need a link. You need I could be.
Was a question I just want you to uninterrupted. I really enjoy its own presentation launching 2 Saturdays ago.
Two things. There are two things. Go ahead.
Tausa pa ba natungawa na gigungwaha tempo mas be kumbidawa talo.
Yeah, okay.
Ito na ba noyo na question siya lo. All in all, actually pa ba faisino izomono summary nestino izomono recommendation with all your experiences no inigi the government the way we ran it for the past how many 40 years already.
Two of the fundamental. Yeah.
apa unatan para muna binigwa fundamental change patatsugi sa ni the relationship sa ni US unatan? Anything that you can?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I really would like to do is to impress the United States Congress
Okay.
the need that whenever they pass legislation affecting the territories in Northern Marianas, that they be sensitive to the shortcomings.
Okay.
Tibulang taw-taw gini, you know, we don't have enough workers. So when they come up with legislation, for example, with respect to immigration, they should understand that we need tourists to come in here to and that's part of our economy. And the other thing is that when we introduce new industries here, that we should have maybe set up a committee of experts from outside the Northern Marianas, and they could come in and look at what we have here and advise us one way or the other. And then we give them our input. And then they could give us an objective, no kind of recommendation as to what industries are good for the Northern Marianas.
Okay, all right.
You see, COVID pandemic has opened up our eyes to the dangers of being an island. So we're subject to shipping. And if we don't grow our own products, then
Yes.
antisina matui patku esta taza tata nuzung taza trunkunizu kista dan taza papaza dan taza, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Taza soda. The opportunity that I think we should start going back to some basic stuff. Gini, we can at least survive. No, mientras que era the pestilence or whatever subsides. Then another thing, I hope 40 years we govern ourselves. Let's try to improve the way we govern things. You know what I mean? I have written so many times in the local papers about the need for our leaders to start thinking that when they are leading us, they're leading all the people, not just the party followers. Please, basten man mumo, sigan man akusa, whenever you do this, you're wasting time, you're spending time on trying to resolve these issues that should never in the first place have been issues. Wala tafan man ananum soda kini pata sige man asangan no putagini da tagini dan udun eh. And all I'm asking is patidya lie day. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Dan gwa lachi bidadanya otupas sangon na lachi sti. Jau comprende often a lachi. You know what I mean? And no good governance.
Nagaza betsulia masya one phone call tune mine antisadita.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No
all right.
problem.
What's a question or comment para si Justice? Okay, go ahead.
No, como tachobe minaulit na isuka haji ko bello congreso delegate tatana la sesete mole público lo congreso teni todo proceso de sapapa de sonido como mole siempre magote lo deben tafamentos tanakaskas mole tano para manfaatkan fama kontak sabula problema apa ini put pandan apa sya no structure todo dan isita kwan ni nadai ni pandan ni salapin ni mapatu ini kita sinema Sidos Marcia, former Justice Leclerc, and I pray for you and God bless America. No,
Sidos Marcia.
Okay, yeah. Governancy caller na ilelengnya na, you know, a lot of these issues should not be issues. If we only understand, you know, again, ajay jota idea is patafan manggagana, tafan mangga. You know, at some point, one by tautan ni lingnya, basta bumoka.
But manatatiya pa ugo nga tanoya didi manotota. Go ahead, caller. Anything, any comment with Justice? Buenas, go ahead. Yes.
Well, Justice De La Cruz. Good morning.
Morning.
Una malabaga gusto o maksumisti programa no isang programa ko ken.
Okay.
Este na inapos na diya Ani mungkin kata gobernador da declarar da pro terminate soalnya topsu si bikin bilabonis ideologinya si governor in the best interest of the Commonwealth. No?
Yeah.
Kita papaling na I wish you well on your future endeavor. So, kung problema kung dan Supreme Justice sila Cruz, Malingin ko nila na palapra siya umanasiti lokit. Kita luta ng tinihan ni Casino Commission. Di man makapasin kung hindi nila nakaptarin in the best interest of the Commonwealth. Kung pala nagkapasin na itada Casino. Nangwanin na siya Casino Commission na nagkapasin. Itada Casino. Ay no tiketi po pa kapapasin no. For the best interest of the citizens. Sa talaga pa pautan na kalaktik. Para na binawlik basta para medical pero.
All right.
Hello, Kugen.
Está, si Diyos masi. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. 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 All right. Maling na comments. Okay. Pues, udi ora gwa last any comment no Justice at isa dita hutsum? Sige muna.
Totally, Glenn, from the beginning, during the previous interviews that are good, you know,
one koa, okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No problem. Go ahead, caller.
Buenos días.
Buenas.
Honorable First Chief Justice of the Sinamay, Dos Martin in the Ditim Commons and Florusha, Parliamented Covenants and the 902. Coincident like this, I get pioneer and you refer to the United States Constitution. Malabo do patikat tungo panano na league testing covenant and the US Constitution. Pamparata ilokta citizenship Bulay pinitehi ni US Constitution. Your true amponatan dinansya si Chief Justice niya sa pangatawag po territorial na linya bulay di US government, US Constitution applicable. So when you say applicable, that will leave up to the federal court to decide.
Yeah. That's very possible. No, what was agreed upon, isn't it? Nah.
Okay, thank you, caller. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very possible that what is in the covenant may also be subject to challenge in the federal courts. I mean, you know what I mean? Huh? No, may anticipate. For example, now there will be challenges to some provisions of the covenant. For example, you say exemptions given in Northern Marianas, and we have seen that happen. No, they have been challenged in the federal courts. For example, a land alienation clause, a Senate representation in the Sinamay Senate, no equal representation from the three major islands, no challenge on equal protection grounds, for example. No, and let me see, what's the other one? No, land alienation, equal protection. I forget the third. There's a third one. Boy, it was challenged, and the federal courts found that those three exemptions are okay, because they're using again the territorial clause ruling insular cases, and it's based on the territorial clause that those cases are treated as if we are not part of the United States, and therefore these rights which are fundamental in the 50 states and those territories which are incorporated where the Constitution would apply because they are destined for statehood. If they are destined for statehood and the U.S. Congress passes a resolution that says this one is gonna start gearing up to become a state, then that territory is incorporated territory. The provisions of the United States Constitution will apply of its own force in that territory. And the best example of that is probably Hawaii, when it was annexed in 1898 by joint resolution of the United States Congress. The U.S. Congress passed a resolution making Hawaii a territory of the United States. And was intended to become a state, I guess, and from 1898. And so the fundamental provisions that apply to the states applies to Hawaii, but not to Puerto Rico, Guam, Northern Marianas, American Samoa, and all that. We're not. So they're treating us as if we are under the territorial clause, although we are not subject to the territorial clause, which itself is kind of like one of those yes and no type of thing. So a lot of these things will end up in the court sometimes, depending on the issues raised. And so, we'll see what happens. But that's a very good point that the caller made, because how could the U.S. Congress decide which provision of the United States Constitution would apply to a particular place that is a part of the United States? That's an issue. So, okay, I hope I answered the question.
Tak istires na izomuno lagi masya kayo Amerika by gigungwa time by ogno sa tapanita talo. So si Mousy Justice Pulitin po. Talo na liblo. Si Roxanne is na comment ilang news o sino i-contact. Fundamental issues affecting the Northern Mariana Islands by former Chief Justice of State of the Cruz. Saludo para Hago, former Justice. Dasta utsubiyay talo na ta panita ginigi programata. Zeus Mousy, para Hago sa pamilya mo, no magtitempo na para tahutsong iprogramata, iprograman Marianas Agupa, talo si Mariano Iglesias, si Aturidad, Historia. Mga man malefaloki na si Peter Santos, Gwenao gigadbo na Island Guam, Zeus Mousy. Para Gwenao Papa Luta, si Gwelo Tim, todo si Maniluta, Gwenao Papa Luta. Ininigad mo na Island Tinian, Senator Singh, dan familia, tuloy tao tinian. Spensa at yung molong bago si Sinuro Cabrera, daw sinya Otto Sabalo. Para talo Itsiluta, si former Justice Jose de la Cruz. Mga man malefa fanielos, agang si Roxanne, talo na iti talangnus wini in numero niya, zanizo niya email, NMI, FIA Northern Mariana Islands at gmail.com, si Roxanne, mga mamalefa. O telefon niya, nangataliapan gini ito niya banner that naholuma. Gini ito niya comment or sino i-contact. No, alright, naganotutwa. Zabay lang no si Zonia no comment si Roxanne. O sino i-contact. Zay ito na tahutsuma esti programata pa ako na sabalo. Alright. Okay, po sa sagi mga si Roxanne, si Zeus Mousy talo po turudo. Guwaho si Glenn H. Manglo niya inagawin sa nafa molig zampas para turudo sanzo. Adios! Huwag sa Hanzo, it's Dr. Sabalo.